Hi, I'm Morgan. Welcome to Way of Living podcast, where you will hear empowering women talking about how you shouldn't feel stuck in an unfulfilling career and how to follow your dreams. Life is short, live it to the fullest, and I hope you will feel inspired by their stories.
Do we really need a degree to be successful and build our own business? Even though we hear so many stories that show us that the answer is no, there is still this stigma for people who don't want to continue studying, and there is still this praise for graduates. Tess Cooper felt out of place in a job where she was surrounded by people who went to Oxford or Cambridge University, especially when the director at the time kept telling her she wouldn't go anywhere without a degree. She started doubting herself, and it took a lot of work for her to gain the confidence she once had. In this episode, she talks about how she created Collaborative Future, her work experiences, and how she built confidence to know her worth. Hi Tess, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you. Thank you so much for asking your builders to stop their work for 30 minutes. Can't believe you did that.
Yeah, they're not even my builders, they're the guy next door. I feel less worried about it actually because they've been doing it non-stop and I've had 3 months of listening to banging.
Yeah, goodness. So you're the founder of Collaborative Future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you present yourself? Tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I started out by myself about 18 months ago, and I actually started as a consultant supporting smaller businesses and startups to think about how to build an inclusive working environment for people. And on that journey, I thought actually I really wanted to take on an intern because I was getting to work with all of these really interesting companies and I wanted them to be able to connect with all of those companies too. And I realized actually it's really hard as a self-employed person to find the time to take someone on, to find the work for them to do. I thought actually if I get some other people together and talk about this, maybe there's a different sort of more collaborative approach we can take to supporting young people into like meaningful work. So that's really how the core of what Collaborative Future is now came into being. Is we got a group of freelancers and small businesses together and said, look, let's find a way for us to offer work placements, paid work placements to young people. And so we've built the Collaborative Future program, which is all about bringing small businesses, freelancers and unemployed young people together in like a community, and they sort of work together flexibly. The interns get paid for their work. We manage all of that side of things so that the businesses don't have to worry about contracts and setting up and things. And they also all learn together as well around sort of how to build effective relationships, how to give each other feedback, and how to really get the most out of all of those opportunities. Yes, so we're running at the moment. We're aiming for 15 interns. We have a rolling application. We're aiming for 15 interns in the next few months and 20 businesses taking part. And so that's what we do currently, is we run that program.
What kind of businesses? What kind of freelancers? What kind of jobs?
We have loads of different businesses involved. So they're mostly like micro businesses or individuals, so any like businesses under the size of 5 people, although we do have some design agencies who are actually using the program as a way of replacing their traditional recruitment processes and actually getting to work with interns and then deciding based on sort of what they see of that person in the work to give them a full-time position. So we've got a design agency who's about 15 people in size, and actually it takes them a lot of time to like look through CVs and all of that kind of stuff, and you never really get a sense of what someone is capable of through a CV or an interview. And so taking part in our program, it means that they get to work with the interns get paid for their time, so even if they don't get the full-time job, they're not losing out from that, they're still getting the experience, and then they will choose to hire someone off the back of that. And we also have individuals, so we've got a few freelancers actually who are both taking on interns but also helping to deliver some of the program as well. So we've got a woman who does consultancy with businesses around sort of change and change management. She works with lots of local councils and stuff, supporting them with change. She does coaching as well. she's working with an intern to sort of get them helping her with her social media and marketing and stuff. But then she's also providing coaching and support to the other businesses and young people on the program. So there's lots of like interesting relationships that we're forming through it.
I feel like there is a lot of you in this company. Well, the company is you. But I feel like because of all your background and what you've been through, I find this very incredible that you're doing this for other people, meaning companies and young people.
Yeah.
Talking about your background, can you talk about this? Because you, at 18, you graduated from your A-levels, started working for your family business, which is a printing company.
Yeah, printing company, yeah.
Yeah, and you worked there for a year. Can you walk through this with us?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm sure my dad won't mind me saying this. I desperately did not want to work in our print company. You know, it wasn't something that I was passionate about. It was about needing to earn money, and I was lucky that I had a dad that ran a business and had that opportunity. And so originally I didn't want to go down that route, but I applied for hundreds of jobs, and they always expected you to have some sort of degree, like a 2-1 degree or whatever, and often your CV would just get thrown out if you didn't meet those requirements. And it was just really tiring to try and find something that I could do to earn money. And so my dad offered me a job at his place, and actually, like, it was transformational working for my dad and working within a small business as my first job, because when you work in a small business you get thrown into doing absolutely everything. And maybe more so because he was my dad, right? Like, he expected more of me than other people might expect. He also trusted me probably more than other people might trust people. So he was sending me out at like 6 o'clock in the morning sometimes to go to breakfast networking meetings when I was like 17, 18 years old, and having to like pitch printing to a load of other like men in suits. And so I developed a lot of like communication skills and things through that. And he was also like letting me look at his accounts and deal with his accounts and deal with his invoicing and all of those sorts of things that have now stood me in good stead with running my own business. But they also helped me with everything I needed to do to work in other companies and you know, connect with people and communicate with people and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah, so I worked with him for a year. It was like, he was the hardest manager to ever work with because of that connection, and also because of like his expectations of me. It was a struggle as an 18-year-old in some ways, but it definitely set me up for knowing how to sort of do a good job.
Did you just not want to go to university? Was it just not an option, or was it just
no? So I got all A's in my A levels, and I was actually relatively academic. I do enjoy learning. If I'd gone to university, I would have been the first person in my family to go to university. And so what I think people don't quite understand is how much that plays into what you like believe about yourself or what you think is the right path to follow. Everyone in my family just like went and worked for the like family business and stuff, and so I would have been like the odd one out to not do that. I also think that I'm very, having said that, like I like learning and I did well in school. I actually am very like hands-on. I just want to like get stuff done. And so for me, spending 3 or 4 years like thinking about stuff felt like a very strange thing to me. I just wanted to like go and do stuff and learn through doing. And I still do that in my work now. This sort of work that I love is, you know, we experiment with new ways of doing things. I don't necessarily always plan how to do them. Like, we get people together, we do the work and work it out as we go along.
I think it's the way you were raised as well. As you just said, you know, it impacts you and what you believe in and what your path needs to be. And if you grew up in a family and the family reunions are like, when you finish school, you need to go back to work, you need to start earning money. This is how you're building yourself.
Yeah. And I mean, they like, you know, my parents tried to encourage me to go to university because they did see that I had the potential to do that. But they might have said all of that sort of stuff. But what I saw was that actually working was important and earning that money was important.
So you worked with them for a year, but you still send job application for admin work, right?
Yes. I mean, again, like I was lucky in the fact my dad knew that I was like doing all of that, and I got time to like go to interviews, because there was so many interviews and so many applications that I had to send to sort of get in the door somewhere. So I had, you know, the time and support to do that. And I got the job that I got was at the Guardian, and the only reason why I went for that job was because my mum encouraged me to think about the types of companies that I actually liked, because I said, oh, I don't know what I can do, I don't have any skills, I don't know what it is that like, and I don't know what type of career path to take and all of this. So she made me focus on the type of company that I wanted to work for.
That's
And
clever. Very clever.
and so I found that job at the Guardian, and they had actually specified that you needed a degree, but I was like, it's a admin job, like, you know, all of the responsibilities, like, I feel like I can do. So I went for it, and then got through to the final stages of interview. Was interviewed by the director there, and he really quizzed me about not going to university and things. And I later found out from the PA that worked with him, that was recruiting me, she said that at one point he'd said that he couldn't be bothered to interview people, and that he said, you know, just tell me a little bit about them. And she said, oh, well, this person went to Oxford University, and this person has been working with her dad for the last year. And he went, oh yeah, hire the person that went to Oxford University. And she was like, absolutely no. She was like, I've spent all this time shortlisting these people, and I've shortlisted them for loads of different reasons other than just their like backgrounds, and so I think you should interview them. And when he interviewed me, he was like, oh yeah, absolutely, hire Tessa.
Wow,
And so if I hadn't have
story.
had her like fighting my corner, even when I didn't really know her, then I wouldn't have got into that job.
That's great. That's absolutely great. Because it doesn't happen to a lot of people. Actually, yes, people get hired just because of where they went to university, which is great already that you had, and you went through all those stages with the Guardian without on your CV having a degree somewhere.
Yeah.
Manager at the Guardian who kept telling you that in your face, throwing in your face that you didn't have a degree.
Yes.
You will not go anywhere without a degree.
This was the same guy that originally wanted to hire the person from Oxford University. So even though he'd agreed that actually I performed better in the interview, he still couldn't get it out of his head that like I hadn't been to university. And in some ways I think he was like thinking, well, maybe it's that she deserves to go to university, and maybe it will help her think about things. Maybe he was trying to be kind, but what often ended up happening was him just making me feel worse and worse about who I was. And being surrounded at the Guardian by a lot of people that did go to Oxford University and Cambridge University, I was always very aware of like the fact that I hadn't done that, and it felt like I wasn't supposed to be there. And I remember him telling me that, I can't remember what words he used, but he said that when I challenged him about why he kept telling me to go to university and why I wouldn't get any further, he said, well, it's just like the way you talk about things, like you're not eloquent enough to have certain conversations or present yourself in a certain way. And that played on my mind probably until I went self-employed, actually, probably until very recently. And I had a lot of coaching, and she's made me sort of realize that actually I can be exactly who I am, and I don't need to put on a show in order to like be valued and accepted for who I am. And actually I now actually realize that because I don't speak in very like flowery language, and you know, have lots
beautiful
of
Queen British
research that like backs up all of my ideas, and you know, all of that kind of stuff. Actually, there's a lot of normal people that get me and want to work with me because I'm just more straightforward about things.
Absolutely. You said that you got coached. Is it after you worked at the Guardian, or was it during?
So coaching has actually been a huge part of my life, and I hadn't quite realized how much influence it had until I then started coaching other people and talking about my own experiences of being coached. So I actually became a manager so the same guy that said I wouldn't get very far without a university degree, he was still at the Guardian when I eventually, like within the space of a couple of years, got promoted to managing a team of people and started to build my own like project management team. And so I think he was just leaving at this point. But I, at the age of 21, had 6 people working in my team and managing most of them like directly. I was managing a lot of people that were older than me. I had no clue what I was doing. And so the new person that was managing me said that they would put me on management training. And as part of that, I got coaching from someone. And actually, he ended up coaching me out of my job at The Guardian because he could see that I was very frustrated by a lot of things there, and got me to talk about what I was frustrated about. And he took me through this process actually where, I was talking about what I wanted in my job. And he just kept repeatedly asking me, like, how are you going to get it then? How are you going to get what you want in your job? And I'd say things like, oh, well, I could ask this person if there's any roles going over in this department, or I could, share this feedback with this person. And then I finally got to the point where I went, actually, or I could just leave and get what I want elsewhere. And so that's when I then started applying for other jobs and thinking about leaving, basically. And I had a bit of a time where I then moved to FutureLearn as a junior product manager, so helping them to build their online platform. This was after having worked in lots of different roles in The Guardian. And then I got headhunted from there by someone that I'd actually interviewed with when I was first thinking about leaving The Guardian. So I'd gone to an interview and I wasn't quite right for what she was looking for at the time. But then she had another opportunity come up later on and she remembered me from the interviews that I'd done. And so she then asked me whether I wanted to go and work for her in that new role. And so I actually left FutureLearn after like 8 months or so of being there and went and worked for her because I admired her. And I knew that meant she had seen something in me, if she'd remembered me and like wanted to work with me because she valued something about me. And so I went and worked with her at Comic Relief for a year or so. But actually I really just missed being in a small business and being in a startup, and actually the change and the impact that you can have when you're working with a smaller team. And so I went back to FutureLearn and I continued my career with them, and they were amazing at promoting and supporting me. I had some really good managers who really like gave me space to like explore what I wanted to do and to grow and stuff. And they actually promoted me when I was on maternity leave there as well, which was like is unheard of. I feel lots of people get sort of their careers
on hold
when they're on maternity leave. But because he was promoting someone else that was in a similar position to me, he was like, we're promoting them and you deserve to be promoted as well, even though you're on leave. So that was good. And then I eventually, because I'd been on such a journey with them and actually going on maternity leave there, I realized that this lovely progressive company that had been supporting me all this time actually had no clue in other ways of how to support people who needed to work differently. So they had a very young set of staff. And so that felt like a really good place to work, felt really supportive and stuff, until I then didn't quite fit into that way of working. And I then needed to work more flexibly around my kids and stuff. And so I then started challenging a lot more the sort of culture there and whether they had the right sort of culture for encouraging more diverse people to do well in that company and to be able to do work in a way that works for them. And because of all of that, I eventually went down the path of working more with people and developing people. And then I ended up in the role of director of people and culture at that company. And so, yeah, this all happened in the space of 4 years. So I was director of people and culture when I turned 26 or 27.
So yeah, it happened like in a very short amount of time if you think about it.
Yes.
From the age of 19 when you left your family's company, to 27.
I think I've lost you.
You went through a lot of jobs, a lot of changes, and then you started running your own business. So how did you come up with, first of all, the courage to do it? And with the idea of, okay, I should do this and there is a market for it. How did you start it?
There were a lot of reasons for why I left my job and decided to go freelance. So many like complicated things. And I was actually in terms of coaching, I was actually being coached by an amazing woman who still coaches me now. She's actually a therapeutic coach. So she also, I vividly remember talking to her about the challenges I was having as director of people at FutureLearn, and talking to her about some of the sort of more senior men that I was trying to change and affect change with. And she used to come up with questions like, so tell me a bit about your relationship with your dad. And I'd be like, whoa, what's that got to do with work? But in reality, like the more she's dug around things, actually there's so much from my past experiences or personal life and things. And it doesn't have to be like big issues or traumatic issues, but they all affect the way in which you then continue behaving with other people, or the way that you perceive yourself, or the way that you perceive other people. And so she took me on that journey and really opened my eyes more to sort of the system that I was operating in and the system that I was trying to change, and realizing the stuff I needed to change about myself, but also all of the things that I hadn't been fully aware of about other people before. So she sort of helped me to make the transition, but also I had my daughter, who I'd gone back to work after 3 months and was just like working nonstop, spending a lot of time dealing with a lot of, I'm going to say, men who behaved like toddlers in work, and realizing actually I had a toddler at home who I wasn't supporting and and looking after in the way that I wanted to, but I was putting all of my energy into these men. And so actually I was like, this is not right. And so I want to spend a bit more time with my daughter, and I want to think about what I want to do. And so I didn't actually go into it thinking I'm going to start a business. I was just like, I need to take time for myself to work out what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. And as soon as I handed in my notice at FutureLearn, I discovered I was pregnant with my second child. And then I was like, oh shit, because when you're self-employed, you don't get like much support from the government in terms of like maternity pay and stuff. And so, yeah, I was just quite lost at the time, but getting to sort of work with lots of different companies purposefully, because I was sort of wanting to explore whether there was any employers who I wanted to actually like then go back to working full time with. But what I discovered was actually that I had so much freedom to actually do the work that I was passionate about, and do all sorts of different work that companies would not like put together into one job role, that I actually enjoyed that so much that I stayed self-employed. And I also got to, I remember the moment where I went for a meeting with someone and they were like, oh, what, are you heading off home now to do work, or are you going somewhere to do more work? And I was like, actually no, I'm off this afternoon looking after my daughter. And like I didn't feel guilty about that, because it's only me that can make judgments about whether I'm working in the right way or not. So I remember that moment where I realized that I could make decisions for myself because I was self-employed. And then, yeah, just everything that I did with Collaborative Future is all just sort of, and my self-employment is all just sort of merging into one thing now. And really everything that we're doing is about completely reimagining the ways in which we work together, and what work actually looks like, and how do we make it so that work actually fits around individuals and fits people and fits what they need and what they're good at and what their strengths are and what fulfills them, rather than everyone trying to squeeze themselves into a box in order to get income, basically, and get employment. And so a lot of organizations that work in a similar space to ourselves, like working with young people or working with people who are out of work, they focus a lot on like the employability skills of those people, and focus a lot on like how to help them present themselves in a certain way, how to help them sort out their CVs and things. We actually I've completely scrapped CVs and things like that, and we focus on actually how do you get individuals and companies to grow together and actually shape roles around people and shape work around people, because in reality we're all unique, we all have different ways of approaching work, and that's good, because it means that we come up with different things and we find different opportunities to one another. But we also all have different needs at different points in our lives. So at one point you could have loads of energy be really focused, know exactly what you're doing in your life, and then you could have a crisis that suddenly affects your mental health or affects your ability to focus. We've all been through a crisis recently with coronavirus and the lockdown. What we're trying to do is help employers to be more flexible around all of that, and fit around people and support people in whatever way that they need support, and in return also support individuals to actually explore who they are, what is important to them, and what is valuable to them in their work, and how do they actually go about getting that, rather than trying to fit themselves into the boxes that people keep telling them they need to fit themselves into.
I really love that. I actually really love that. As you just said, it's better to shape a role around a person that you want to hire than the other way around.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Because like the boxes picture that you just presented is exactly this. Because when you want to work for a company or for in that role, even when you do the interview, sometimes we have to make up a new personality, or we have to go into character to please the person in front of us. Actually, it should be the other way, like we should be selling ourselves and why we're so incredible to work with you guys. And I think this is amazing, and I hope that you can spread with your work, you can spread this to bigger companies and worldwide. I have so much hope.
I hope so too. I think that is our hope with Club to Future. We're quite a small community at the moment. We're testing lots of new ways of doing stuff. We're very focused on diversity and inclusion and on fairness and things. And lots of people sort of question like, oh, well, if you're shaping stuff around people all the time, then surely that's like what's been the problem all along, is that roles are shaped around certain types of people, generally like white men for sort of senior roles. But actually, I think when you start from a place where you're like, everyone has the potential to do good work, everyone is equally valuable, and what we want to build is a diverse team that brings diverse perspectives and diverse backgrounds and stuff, because we know that there's loads of research to say that's more productive, people do better work when they're in those situations. Like if you start from that place, then actually you are looking for the people that can create that, and then what you want to do is just look at how they complement one another and find what you're missing from that, and either develop the people that you've already got and support them to grow into sort of what you need as a business, or again find people to fill those gaps in different ways. You don't have to hire someone full time to fill a gap, like working with freelancers, connecting people up in that sort of way to bring in the bits and pieces that you need as a business, without necessarily needing to constantly be hiring more and more people to fill certain roles, I guess.
If you had a message to someone who is not academic, who is a bit older and he doesn't have a degree, or to someone who can't afford university, what would be your message?
I guess for me, I would say a few things. One, like, people make judgments about other people all the time, and the biggest thing that I've learned is that often that says more about them than it does about you. That person that kept telling me that I wouldn't get very far in life without university, actually it was his problem that he was holding on to that, and like he obviously held some beliefs that if I had let go of sooner, I probably would have felt better in my work. And I think, and a lot of that stems from all sorts of things, and this is where like working with a therapeutic coach is interesting, because a lot of what he was doing there actually could be from his own like low self-esteem or belief in himself, and actually jealousy and frustration that there's someone that didn't spend all of that time and money going to university and is still doing well for themselves, is still doing work that they love. Or also people looking at everyone else and saying like, well, you're not fitting into my beliefs around what success looks like, and so therefore, like, does that mean that I'm not successful? Or like, why? I'm so confused by why you're not trying to be successful in the way that I want you to be successful, kind of thing. And so I think taking control of what you believe success looks like, taking control of like what you want and need in work, and feeling confident that that is the right thing for you. And whatever other people say, if that knocks your confidence, actually sometimes you've just got to work out how to let go of that and realize that it's their problem, and you need to keep going on like your path and thinking about yourself and what you need in your work. The other thing I would say is also just connect with as many people as possible, because and that's what we're trying to do with this program, is trying to create as many different connections as possible, because you never know where someone is going to actually see value in you. And like I sort of said around that woman that had interviewed me once and then came back to me 6 or 7 months later, I didn't know that she was going to do that. And actually having invested time in connecting with that person, that benefited me later on in life. And I find that even now, like in my business, I suddenly get a message from someone who I'd connected with years ago, and they've gone, actually, can you help me with this thing? And that's, I think the connections that you build are important.
I was going to ask you, like, what you've done for, like, all the jobs you've done before. You built a huge network. Did this help you with starting? Because when you started the first time, you had to put yourself out there and have clients and people who wanted you. How did this work? Like, did you have like a little notebook and people?
So I had a lot of people who who wanted to support me in that, and who I'd worked with in the past, and they would recommend me to other people. One thing that I found from that though is you still then feel sort of indebted to those people that think they're like helping, and they are helping you, but there were certain people who were trying to help me, but were again like pushing me into work that actually wasn't right for me, or that actually wasn't stuff that I enjoyed. I was just sort of taking it for two reasons: one, because I needed the money, and two, because like I felt indebted to that person because they'd helped me. And so again, that's where like increasing your confidence and awareness of like what you need in your work, and you taking control of that, is something that's really important, rather than having everyone else telling you what you need. And that's been a big shift for me, in the fact like previously I was getting pulled all over the place by other people, not on purpose. They were trying to be helpful. They were trying to say like, here you go, here's this piece of work over here, or whatever. And now I'm starting to say, actually, this is my business, this is what I do, and people that want that, they can come work with me, or people that share my values, they can come work with me, because that's the type of work I want to do. And if you know anyone that fits, that category and all of that kind of stuff, then please put me in touch. But actually, no, I'm not interested in this other type of work. And so, building up that confidence to be clearer around what you need in your business is important.
You talked about success earlier, and the view on success, and how people need to view their success. What's your definition of success? And do you feel successful?
I go up and down around how I feel about success, and I think it depends on other people's opinions. Like I say all of this stuff, like, oh, let go of other people's opinions and stuff, but it's really hard to actually maintain that. And I think for me, it's like living a life that actually fits with your values, and actually is like deeply connected to who you are. And that's where, like, I actually love the fact that you said to me earlier, like, I can see a lot of yourself in your business, because I think that's important. Doing things that actually deeply connect with who you are and what you believe about the world and want in your life is what success is. But the problem is that we're constantly told that we should want certain things. So I work with a lot of young men, for instance, who the only success they see with other men is they either see someone who's like a footballer or a musician, or like a celebrity, and like celebrity is what they sort of see as success, or they think about finance and people with lots of money and big bonuses, and that's what they see it as success. They don't necessarily have many role models elsewhere to sort of say, actually, if you enjoy working with young children and like, you know, running children's classes and stuff, whether that's teaching or whether that's running like activities and stuff for kids. Men can be successful in that space and they can have enjoyable careers and things in that space, but you know, you mostly see women doing that type of work, so they've not been shown that success can look like that for a man. And the same with like looking after kids. My partner still struggles with seeing his role as a dad as success, because you know, he does the majority of our childcare now and we have sort of shared it over the years, but he still feels like that's not enough success because everyone, like all of the other men in his life, have been earning loads of money or have been, and so it's really hard to break away from the narratives and the stories that like society has told us in the past. And I think it just takes a lot of self-awareness to really get to the point of understanding what success looks like for you as an individual. And so I guess that's what I'm trying to say, is that success should be about the individual and what the individual needs and wants, and that will change at different points in your life, and it doesn't have to be like one linear journey towards success.
I love how I always ask this question and people always have more or less kind of the same sometimes, but they always have a different view, and I love that. Thank you so much, Tess. It was really lovely to meet you.
It was lovely to
Very
meet you too.
inspiring. And I really hope that you spread this new way of hiring and internship and everything to the bigger level. That would be great. Take care and good luck for the rest.
Thank you very much.
Voila, that's the end of this episode, and I want to thank Tess for telling her story. Please share it on your social media and it might reach someone who will feel inspired to follow their dream. Don't forget, life is short. Live it to the fullest.